Welcome to Vacation Station, hosted by Lisa and Nancy, editors of BigBlendMagazines.com.
Hey everybody, welcome to Big Blend Radio's Vacation Station Travel Show with Nancy and Lisa. It is the fourth Tuesday of the month, and we're at the end of the year, end of December. And that means, well, not the end of December, but when it's the fourth Tuesday, it means that we get to catch up with travel writer Debbie Stone. We call her the Fire Monkey. Sometimes she's on a boat, sometimes she's not. Sometimes I call her like Travel Stone, right, Debbie? You have different names. I've called you all kinds of things, but not anything negative. But it always says no, because, well, listen, she has so many adventures, not just across the country, especially during COVID. She said, heck no, I'm still going. I'm going to national parks. I'm going to the Dakotas. I'm going to Nebraska. I'm doing all these other road trips and staying safe. And she did. And has also finally got back out into Europe and, kayaking through Italy, all kinds of places. But she's been back out on the road and going into the Southwest, which is not far for her since she is based in Santa Fe. She recently had two amazing experiences that these experiences are, I think, for many of us who have a thing about the Southwest and geology and water and the outdoors. These are two experiences that are on our bucket list. One is she went to Antelope Canyon. I'm jealous. I'm really, really jealous. And then she went rafting Horseshoe Bend. She got in a boat, kind of a boat, right? Anyway, she's written a story for each experience. You can read them and see the photos. If you go to nationalparktraveling.com, you'll see them in upcoming issues of Parks and Travel magazine. But welcome back, Fire Monkey. How are you?
Oh, I'm doing fine. And yes, I was I stayed closer to home this time and kept it down to the Southwest, which is always, I can never get sick of that region. You know it too, ladies, because you lived there for so many, you lived there and spent a lot of time in that area. But, it's such a beautiful area, and there's so much to explore. And, and Antelope Canyon and Horseshoe Bend were two places that they've been on my list, and for some reason, I'd never gotten around to it. And then it was like, okay, time for a road trip. We're going,
We went many, many years ago when our print magazine went from being Big Blend to Southwest Blend. And we were Southwestern. And we went to Page. And this was even when we were living in Julian in San Diego in the mountains. And Nancy and I took a road trip. It was May. And we just said, that's it. We need to go and do our thing. We can't just, we got to do it,
right.
Obviously. And off we went, and we went to Page, and we stayed in this really funky, cool motel on Elm Street. And Nancy and I thought it was really funny. And the owner of the motel opened the door, and they'd been having a party at the inn, basically. And everybody was drinking beer and carrying on. And we're like, okay. This is interesting. And I remember the inn had like angels and stuff all over. And I'm going, we're on Elm Street? Really? And it was Friday the 13th or something. I swear to God.
And it was
not
like
a joke.
666 Elm Street.
Well, so anyway, we were on Elm Street, and Nancy and I had the giggles. And it was this really cool. It's just, the Southwest has these motels that are, and the revival is back on with Route 66 and everything, which is so exciting because they're just like, I don't know, it's like that iconic road trip vibe.
It's that retro feel, I think.
Yes.
Is very, very alluring to travelers these days. Very, very alluring.
But they keep their personality, and that is really why you travel, is to go see the personality of a place.
Of course.
Yeah.
And then Nancy and I we were in Page, and we went over Lake Powell, and then I got all into John Powell's history. And now your articles brought me all back into that. And now I'm going to geek out on it. Like, I think he's like, if you're into the Southwest, like Aldo Leopold, right? I just feel like people should know him, like know more about him and what he did. Because he also fought in the wars. Like this guy, he's like Fremont in a way, right? And So he was a big deal.
Yes.
And so we went through like some of the areas you went to, but we did not do Antelope Canyon. We did not get to, well, no, we did do Horseshoe Bend, but we didn't go kayaking. But we
No.
did Marble Canyon. We saw wild horses in the Vermilion Cliffs, like
So
herds of
pretty.
them. And we saw condors being re-released, and we got lost in Escalante and ended up
Oh,
in
no.
Utah by accident. And we really, it was hot, and we really needed a beer. And apparently where we got in Utah, they don't do that. And this,
No, you're in the wrong state for that.
you
Yeah.
don't go to
Yeah.
a diner and say, "Do you have a beer?" Like it just is one of those beer days. And I looked at it,
Yeah.
it's like, I beg your pardon. So oopsie.
Yeah.
But we went to Jacob Lake, and so we just did one of these, what kind of
Yeah.
like our
Crazy.
life, one of these road trips
Yeah.
that is nonstop now, but ended up in Jacob Lake, which is the north rim of the Grand Canyon. And I encourage people,
Yes.
you've done a story on that too. It's
Yeah.
so when people are traveling, and that's where I'm getting to, I belong to these Facebook groups where people are like, we're going to this park. What can we do on the way? What do you think is
Right.
the best thing? What you've done here, these are two iconic experiences that you could tie in to like Jacob Lake or like the North Rim and, even go
Absolutely.
up to Vegas and even, I know you recently were in Durango, but it all actually connects in a way,
Well,
right?
it's, like I said, you can just draw the circle around Page and not too far, an hour you're in Kanab, Utah, you're close to Zion and Bryce and Escalante, and it's a mecca for all this wonderful geology, I think, and a landscape that's so unique. So yeah, I mean, people could spend, several weeks out in that area and cover that that region, because there's just so much to see. And if you're somebody who loves the outdoors and you like to hike and you're curious about the geology and the natural, the rocks and everything, the landforms, that's the place. That really is the place.
It's quite amazing, all the different things that you see. Like when you look at the rock formations there, you have to
Yeah.
wonder, how did
Yeah.
that happen?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And that's why, Antelope Canyon is one of those formations. And it's a very almost surreal type of canyon. It's just nothing like I've ever seen before, ever. And I've seen a lot of canyons and have gone through my share of slot canyons, but I've never. And the pictures are amazing out there. I think people have screensavers of it, and they just there's a lot of Insta pics out there. But they are incredible, and they will whet your appetite. But when you get there, you'll be like, oh my God, this is just like it's 10 times over. Yeah, because you're experiencing in person. You're walking through. You're looking at the light. You're looking at the colors. You're hearing about the geology. You're hearing about erosion and how things were formed with wind and rain, and how it took millions of years, and how there's it's the minerals, it's the iron, the deposits that are in it that are giving it these incredible shades of orange, of red, of different colors. But it truly is a remarkable experience. But there are two of them. There's upper and lower that people tour. And everybody, it's very popular. Upper Canyon's very popular only because it was publicized so much with photos that people took, and because of the number one reason is this like light beam that comes down through when the sun comes through onto the canyon floor. And it's this particular happening or occurrence that has gotten a lot of attention. And I have seen the pictures of that, and it is incredibly remarkable. It is one of those occurrences, though, that happens, only during a few months of the year, and when the sun, so midday, and it's hard to, plan your trip around something like this, especially if you're saying I'm going to go in fall because that's the time that works out for me, or whatever, or I don't want to be there in the summer because it's just too hot. And my advice to everybody, or recommendation, is, go when you can go. See it when you can see it. You're going to be blown away no matter what, and whether there are the light beams or no light beams. So just go. You will. It is magnificent.
Oh,
it's a
man.
good place for dinosaurs.
Yeah.
I just think it'd be fun. I did
Yeah.
see dinosaurs in that kind of setting.
Oh, yeah.
That I
Throughout the
just,
Southwest, you can see, you
yeah,
think of dinosaurs. I mean, they discovered a
yeah.
lot of bones out there, but yeah, you
Hmm.
can just imagine them out there, you know?
Mm. So when you're looking at the whole geology, did they tell you that, the connection to the Colorado River, does it connect to that? Because you always see these photos, but we just don't get a feeling of where it is. You know what I mean? With Antelope Canyon. Is it
Yeah, that's a
connected
good
or was the
question.
geology separate from
That's a good
the,
question, and I don't have the answer for you, but that is a
okay.
good question.
Well, it's a
They did
geeky
not.
one.
They did not. Yeah, it's a good one. They talked a lot about the layers, about the how the rain and the wind,
Hmm.
how that and the erosion and how that kind of worked its magic, so to speak, with all the sand and everything, and how over a period of umpteen years and eons that it just created, and it's like this undulating waves, is what it looks like, and depending on where you're standing and how much light there is, the shades, can be darker or brighter, or as you can see by pictures, it's just, it is all dependent on positioning and time of day and all that kind of stuff. But it's remarkable. And the Lower Canyon, which in my mind is equally as spectacular, was for me a more, I think it was more enjoyable only because it's really kind of, it's fun. It involves more of a hike experience. The Upper Canyon is fairly level. People with any kind of accessibility issues, it's very accessible.
Hmm.
But the Lower Canyon, you are climbing ladders. You're kind of going through narrow spaces, and to me, it was more of an adventure. And I put in my story something about being Indiana Jones because it kind of, you just got that feel for it, and I liked that feel. I really felt like I was experiencing the canyon in a very, I don't know, just kind of almost hands-on way. But yeah, I equally enjoyed it, and the colors and the experience was equally as enjoyable. So I also would tell people if the Upper Canyon is sold out, perhaps because it does take a lot of advanced preparation or reservations, that the Lower Canyon is so wonderful, and you will get a remarkable experience for
What
that one as well.
I think it's that's the thing is like everybody goes to the typical places and it sometimes it's ruined. Like everybody's bunching up and you just come on everybody, like give people like Moab is apparently like that, and the arches are it's like that. It's like you
Hmm.
have to wait for hours to not have anybody in your picture, you know?
Yeah, I think some of the very very famous places, are definitely overrun by tourism. And I think as a tourist or as a visitor, you can plan your trip so that you're not going in the height of the tourism season, and that maybe the time of day that you can go when it's not going to be as crowded. These tours in the Upper Canyon, particularly, they were one after another, and there's people kind of on your heels, and so it's also more challenging to take pictures because you've got people around
Hmm.
you,
Hmm.
and there's a sense.
Sounds like a
There's a
breast
sense.
strip.
Yeah,
Like
it's
I said.
yeah, it's the feel is like, okay, they have to take you through this and get you through and get you out. And so on the Lower Canyon, I had so much more of a leisurely experience, and less people, no crowds. It was, I don't know, it was, to me, that was delightful, and I really appreciate, like I said, the kind of fun hiking that is a little bit involved in that.
And when would you say to go so you can kind of like the shoulder season kind of thing, because you also talk about it's that midday time that you want to take that photo in the Upper Canyon, which is
And
we've all been trained never to take photos at midday, but
Exactly.
here,
Well,
but
yeah, but
here you do it. Yeah.
in this particular one, that's a sun chef, but it's also like really during late spring, summer, and maybe early fall, where those light beams are able to, where people are wanting to go at midday, and so they book the 11 o'clock tour or whatever, which is always going to be sold out. I suggest that you go off season, which to me would be later in the fall, and go in the winter even, or early spring, where you're not going to encounter as many tourists,
Mm.
and maybe the weather, yes, will be colder. It will be colder, but wear a coat.
Yeah. stress.
Yeah, that's it. Trying to, I think it's better on the land, to have a little bit of a lighter footprint and to go on those other sides if you're able to physically, right? And have the
Yeah.
time and everything to go on those other hikes because it's just, I think you're so right with that, where you think, oh no, it's not the big famous one. But when you go and you can breathe and be part with the
Yeah.
land, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
There's just this whole other adventure. And I love that you brought up Indiana Jones because he does go in and out of those caves,
Oh, absolutely.
it's that's so cool, but at least you have ladders. But so this is all on Navajo land, right?
Yes, and that's another thing. It is a monument of the Navajo people. It is a Navajo tribal park, and so this means that you have to go with an authorized Navajo tour guide, a company that has the permit to be able to do this. And speaking in terms of the Lower Canyon, they will close the Lower Canyon if there is going to be a rainstorm because you will get trapped in there. And so they do look ahead at the weather and they do close it because it is one of those, it's a canyon and
Sure.
you can get trapped in there because of the water. So that's another thing to consider too is that it can be closed because of the weather, but they know in advance and they will close it in advance to prevent anybody from getting trapped in there. But yeah, like I said, I appreciate going off season to a lot of places. I think in my mind it's like you say, it's quieter, it's more peaceful. You can have a little bit more of an intimate experience with nature.
I love that. I mean, because you're doing nature and then this geology. Like, I mean, do birds go in there? Like bats? Birds? Yeah, birds and bats.
I didn't see any birds and bats. Now, the upper canyon is kind of shaped, like I said, like an A, where it's narrow at the top and wide at the bottom, okay? And then the lower one is kind of the opposite. It's kind of wide at the top and narrow at the bottom. So I would think if there was going to be any kind of creatures coming, it would be more in the lower antelope because it's wider at the top, where there's more light, there's more, air coming through. But I didn't see anything. I didn't see any creatures or anything, and they didn't speak about any wildlife being in there. So,
but then the pronghorn story, that's cool.
Yeah, that's kind of an interesting thing. Yeah, the way that got named Antelope Canyon, and actually it was found by a Navajo, a Dene girl, back in 1931, and she stumbled upon it. And fittingly, I said in my story that her daughter operates tours of the canyon today. So that's
so cool.
So cool. Yeah,
full circle.
Yeah, that's awesome. So everyone, there's all these different companies. It's all in Debbie's article, Fire Monkey's article on nationalparktraveling.com. But adventurous Antelope Canyon Tours, Antelope Slot Canyon Tours, Antelope Canyon Tours, and Antelope Canyon Navajo Tours. And then that's really for the Upper Canyon. For the Lower Canyon, it's Dixie's Lower Antelope Canyon Tours and Ken's Tours. So I don't know if did Dixie and Ken ever meet. I just think
Dixie and Ken are brother and sister, and their companies are located right next to each other.
Okay, cool. That's cool. So I mean, check that out. And you also say to reserve your tour in advance. I know people that just thought they could arrive and go, and that's a no. I've seen so many sad stories on Facebook about this.
Yeah.
So that's
you really
big advice.
Reserve
it's
in
always
advance,
good too,
especially in the high tourist times, and if you're wanting to do that midday tour and all that kind of stuff, you really have to plan this one out. It's just it's not I'm sure once in a while, sure, you can drop in and maybe there's a space or whatever, but don't be disappointed. Don't let your hopes get up and without doing some sort of homework ahead of time.
So when you talk about high season, so summer is a high season for that kind of area of the Southwest.
I
that's
think
kind of when people are
late spring, summer, and very early fall. I think are very much
May through September, October, right?
Yeah,
like even April.
Yeah, Yeah, I think that's pretty much what you would say. So, if you really are, if it's okay with you, with individuals' preferences, why not, go in November or December or January, February or March or whatever. Yeah, it's going to be cold, but you know what? It's such a beautiful landscape, and
Oh my
it's
God,
so much more
winter in the
peaceful. Isn't
Southwest
it gorgeous? Gorgeous.
it's awesome.
it's
Yeah,
magical,
Hmm.
it is. Oh
Yeah, you're
God,
making
yes.
me
Yeah.
homesick. I'm just saying this all this Arizona stuff we're doing on shows lately in New Mexico. We do, our
Yeah.
monthly New Mexico show now. I'm like, okay, I miss you. I want to smell creosote. I do.
Hmm.
I want the monsoon
Oh.
season with creosote. No one, I mean,
Oh.
not to say no
Yeah.
one knows that. People in the Southwest know that. It's like a weird scent, and at first you think it's some animal peat somewhere, but it's not. But it's the
No.
most ancient plant we have on the planet, the
I
creosote.
know. I
Is it?
know. And
And
it's
they,
and it's so
they're just
distinctive.
amazing.
It's such a distinctive plant, and it does. You're right. It has such a distinctive smell.
I know when you get into the Southwest, you're like, what the heck? What?
Yeah.
I didn't do that.
She
It
said
wasn't me.
distinctive. She
You
kept
know,
saying distinctive.
yeah,
Yeah.
I know.
Yep.
It
Yeah.
stinks. Let's
Yeah.
just put it
Yeah.
that. But actually, and Native Americans use it for tea and all kinds of stuff. And
Oh
Hmm.
yeah. Oh,
it
very much
does
so.
actually have
Medicine.
oil,
Hmm.
and it's interesting because it grows in circles. And there's a
Hmm.
certain area out in Lucerne Valley area in California high desert outside of Joshua Tree where is one of the most ancient patches of creosote,
Mm,
and they grow in
Wow.
circles, and it's
it's
amazing. I
cool.
mean, I know. I'm
Very
sorry,
cool.
went off on a tangent, but I'm missing the Southwest. It's
Mm.
home. It's home for sure,
Yeah.
A
Yeah. Yeah.
you went on a raft journey on Horseshoe Bend. I remember seeing Horseshoe Bend, and
Hmm.
even to get the iconic photo of that, I'm like, dude, mm-mm. That's like,
It's
when you went to the Black Canyon of the Gunnison, didn't you feel a little nervous, like going and
why.
photographing? Well, you know what? There was two parts of the park, and we did the north and the south. And the
Yes.
north, like I felt like I know that we're in a safe, caged kind of thing, fenced in
Yeah.
thing, but mm-mm.
Oh.
But
Yeah.
then I
Yeah.
drove Millionaires Highway after that, so I was good.
Well, that yeah, I was gonna yeah. If you've got the little bit of the height issues, with looking at something way down,
Mm.
and
Hmm.
also, parts of it are maybe not fenced, and you've got a sheer drop off. Whether you're
Hmm.
standing or driving. Yeah, I think and think people need to have. Some people just common sense is important. I think and
Oh
it's like
yeah.
You said it. You put it in your
let's not
article,
take
and
that selfie.
you took you took my bait because you wrote about have that common sense rule, obey the
Yeah.
Yeah,
rules of common sense, and I underlined
yeah,
it in this because I just can't we just I almost feel like can't we make that a bumper sticker?
yeah,
Obey the
yeah,
rules of common sense. Just that
yeah,
should be a bumper sticker.
There's
I
yeah,
mean,
there's
seriously.
been there's been times where I've looked at parents and wondered where are
Why
you?
you're letting your kids do this
Why are you
too?
like
Yeah.
I remember doing that bridge in the Grand Canyon
Oh yeah,
and
you're talking
I
about that
don't
before, yeah.
yeah,
yeah,
and it's seriously this kid was running and the parents were way like I was like, where are you?
yeah,
How would you let your kid do
yeah,
it? And he was running and pushing people. So
yeah.
I got down
It's
on my hands and knees to finish the bridge, and the bridge is swaying, and
yeah,
I'm like,
Mm-mm.
yeah.
no.
But
And
it's
I'm like,
cool. But
and
listen, there's a
it,
lot of us who love that stuff, right?
I know, but
Tons of
I,
us.
like I said, if you have common sense and need to,
yeah,
you step back and you don't,
hmm,
do something stupid. There's so many
yeah,
beautiful places. There's so many beautiful
Hmm.
places, and to be
right.
able to see, the views, to me, yeah, of course there's a little risk involved, but if like you said, if you obey the common sense
Hmm.
rules,
Yeah.
it's like then because you read almost you read
Hmm.
several times you read about people who are trying to take a selfie and they're standing in the Grand Canyon or wherever it is, and it's just
Or
like
oh, let
you're like
me
what are you doing, or they're
let
standing
me
next
take
to
a
a
selfie with a
waterfall,
no
and it's like
a
ugh.
buffalo. Let me go to
Yeah.
Yellowstone and
Oh
stand
yeah.
buffalo. It's like, what's
Yeah.
wrong with you?
Yeah.
No,
Yeah.
but that's something that I think I don't bring this up to be negative, but I love these two articles. You have such important tips so people don't just arrive thinking they can get into Antelope Canyon, because it's a downer. It's a downer
Yeah,
when
it is.
you're driving across the country. Oh, let's just go here, and you
Yeah.
waste your time and you can't do it. It's a
Yeah.
bummer. So and so you're really saving people time and money.
Right.
And the same thing with this. It is about reminding, because we do actually see this, on the news
Right.
just about every other day.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
Yeah.
it's not
Yeah.
uncommon, but it is about really common sense. I do think that should be a bumper sticker. Obey the
Yeah.
rules of common sense. I'm sorry,
I
but
like
that's
that.
perfect.
I
But
think
you went
I think
hiking?
it's right.
Yeah,
Well, we went,
it seems
first
like
to
it's
be able to.
easy for people to experience this, even if they
Yes.
don't want to go on a raft, right?
Yes. Now, the hike is simply 1.5 miles round trip. Hikes up a little bit, and then there is the area where you can look at the walls of the Navajo sandstone. You're looking at the erosion. You're looking at the water that has been forced to make this bend, which is why it's Horseshoe Bend in the river. And so you're looking down about 1,000 feet, and you're looking at the Colorado River, and it's this beautiful blue-green color. And and there are railings there on the central part of it, but there's also many other areas where people can go, and if they want get away from the masses of the crowds, they just need to be careful, as we were talking about it. But it's remarkable to see it from that perspective, and then to be able to see it from the perspective of actually being in the river and seeing Horseshoe Bend as you're going around it. And so to me, I thought it was a unique opportunity to be able to get both perspectives.
Right.
And this was a half
Absolutely.
day adventure, which
Oh
is
yeah,
unusual for Debbie, because when she gets on a boat, she floats and rafts and white waters and
for
does all kinds of
days,
crazy
for
stuff for
days.
days. She's out in the woods for days, and we never know when she's going to come back, but she does obey common sense rules.
Yes, yes, and this raft trip is first of all, this is not white water. This is a float trip,
Oh,
and
nice.
so yeah, so anybody can do this. This is suitable for children. It's suitable for it's very easy. You get in the boat. There's a guide. The guide tells you stories, talks about the geology, talks about the wildlife. Talks a little bit about his life or her life, and so it's very easy. You get off at a certain point in time. You go to Petroglyph Beach, where you take a little bit of a short walk, and you see this amazing panel of
They're
petroglyphs.
amazing.
One of the panels that one of the more amazing and vivid panels that I've seen of petroglyphs, and I've seen quite a lot of them, over the years, especially in the Southwest, and people, there's always, I'm always confused at first too, but the people with pictographs and petroglyphs, but one is carved, the petroglyphs are carved into the rock, and the pictographs are actually drawn on top of the rock or painted on top of the rock. So these are petroglyphs, and you'll see a lot of different symbols, and people are not sure exactly what they are, but some of them can be, you can look at them and say, oh, those look like bighorn sheep, or those look like birds, or hunting scenes. And so that to me was one of the highlights. I thought it was such an impressive panel there, and you're going to see
it's a newspaper rock. That's what they always call them, like newspaper rocks, and I love that.
Yes,
because it
yes,
is
that's
like
such a
the
good
ancient
expression.
newspaper.
It is. It is. And so then you're going to see all these huge formations, and it's really fun because some of them resemble all these different shapes and, facial shapes or animals. And we saw one that looked like Jabba the Hutt from Star Wars, and, one that looked like logos for football teams. And, it's kind of fun to be able to, it's like when you're lying down and you're looking at clouds and you see different, things in the clouds. And the same thing with these rocks and these formations. So, and also we were very lucky because we saw some wild horses, which was
that was
a real
like
treat.
That was in the boat, right? So you're having this other. There's something about being in the water and seeing wildlife. You're almost more at one with them because you're in this a little bit more of a vulnerable position, right?
Oh, it
And
was
so,
so wonderful. Yeah, it was
oh,
so special to be able to see them. And supposedly at
Mm-hmm.
different times a year, you can actually see the bighorn sheep there up on the rocks.
Mm-hmm.
We didn't see them because it wasn't that time of year. But yeah, it's nice. I mean, I love being able to see wildlife out where they're supposed to be, and not
Mm-hmm.
not where they're not supposed to
Absolutely.
be, so to be. But it was so special. It really was.
that's
Mm.
awesome. The one thing I wanted to touch on was you talked in your article about the geology of this varnish. And I always, and we've done so much, in geology and in going in these parks and places. And I was like, what is this with this varnish? And you
Yeah.
sometimes wonder, did somebody do that? Did humans do it? Because you know what I mean? It's like, but
Yeah.
but you talked about that, and I thought that was a very interesting point because there is this, it's almost like a lacquer.
Mm-hmm.
And
It
it's like,
is.
how did that happen? And it is real,
And it
nature's
all has to
amazing.
do with the minerals,
Mm-hmm.
and it the amount of the minerals, and it's found particularly in arid regions,
Mm-hmm.
can take many, many, many years to coat a surface. And so yeah, it's beautiful though, because it has such a beautiful hue and texture, and I love the fact that it's called desert varnish. I think, yeah, I love that.
My
Mm-hmm.
fingernails want it.
Yep.
They do.
Hello.
They do.
All
But
righty
I
then.
I want to give the company you went with, Wilderness River Adventures. Go to their website, riveradventures.com, and they start doing their trips from March through the end of October. So, we're right in that time where we start planning next year,
Yeah.
2023. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
do it now. Do it now. Because everything does book up, especially these kind of things. You're out in the
Ah,
wilds, so you want to
Yes.
you want to book up while you can. But again, Debbie's articles are up on nationalparktraveling.com. She's got all kinds of other articles on blendradioandtv.com too. She's got articles all over. And
mm-hmm.
so keep up with her there. And she's on our show every fourth Tuesday. We get to talk with a fire monkey, and keep up with us on that with bigblendradio.com. But Fire Monkey 2023, I know we're pre-recording this, but like it's just a few days away as this
I
airs.
know.
So 2023, any
Crazy.
view into your Fire Monkey crystal ball of where you're going?
I have a lot of places. I'm going to go back to the Northwest, of course,
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
and also I'm looking at doing a trip to Hawaii, the Big Island of Hawaii this
Cool.
time, and that's also a very cool place for all the geology with Volcano National Park there, and yeah, and then hopefully I will get over to the Azore Islands in Portugal. So
Ooh.
Mm.
that's on the roadmap as well. But in between, I hope to do a lot of stuff in the U.S. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, so yeah,
Yeah,
lots of fun things to plan. Planning is the fun part. I mean, I love doing it, but there's a lot of fun in planning too.
Oh, for
this is
sure.
so interesting about how
Mm-hmm.
much you've done of the US over the last few years. Like seriously.
Well,
It
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, how do you, because you've done so many countries, all the continents, like how do you feel about America with all
Oh,
the places that you've been?
I will.
oh,
I will never tire of traveling in this country.
It's
I just think
amazing,
that
isn't it? It's so diverse.
it's so diverse. Whether it's the geology, the geography, the history, the culture.
mm-hmm.
You go from one end of the country to the other, and everything in between, and it's all so different and fascinating. And there's so much beauty in our country, so much
Mhm.
natural beauty, and like I said, I will never tire of it. Never.
Mm-hmm.
I don't
I
think we will
agree.
either. I mean,
Mm-mm.
it's just, you start to get, now we're getting to know highways and roads and stuff that, I never thought I'd ever know. Like really know them. You know what I mean? It's like, okay, you can turn GPS off now, kind of thing. And don't look at maps. And who
Right.
knew I'd know that, like, in the whole other side of the
Yes,
country.
it's always fun.
But that's when it's time
Yeah.
to move on to the next place. Honestly,
Yeah.
when you don't need, that's our thing. As soon as
Yeah.
it's time to go. It's like on to the
Mhm.
next place. You already know your way around. That's that now, or you need to go get
Yes.
lost somewhere on the other side of the city. So that's just, I'm talking about even microscopic regions, right? That you're in. But
Yeah.
this country is pretty darn
Oh, it's
amazing when we think
amazing.
about like, you know, our life in Africa and England and
Yeah.
all in different countries living in them. This country represents so much of that too.
Oh, yeah.
There's so many places that remind me of, Kenya and,
Yes.
certain places that remind me of Mexico. I mean, obviously it was Mexico, some parts of it. And
Mhm.
I don't know. I feel like we do. And when you get into this smaller businesses, you get to meet people that come from all over the world with
That's
their
true.
smaller business.
Mhm.
And you were talking about going to Portugal, and that's kind of where it got to. We were in Tulare County, actually the city of Tulare in Central California, outside Sequoia
Yeah.
National Park, and were introduced this wonderful lady who's sadly passed,
Mm.
and she is from the where you're going in Portugal. Um, and I mean, the accent, she told us her whole immigration story, and her husband, and they lived in New York and came here, and she, like, so all the Portuguese people in this area, which there's a lot because of farming and all kinds of things, and there's like a whole history there. They go to her coffee shop and bakery every single day.
Yeah.
They have soccer meeting practice. I mean, it's like the small
Yeah.
community thing. And she started bringing out espressos, and she taught us everything you need to know about like Portuguese baked goods. So, I
Oh,
mean,
I
it was
love.
so and
Yes.
she was so
Mm.
shy, but she did give us an
Sweet.
interview. To
She
this
is
day,
so
one of the
sweet.
highest interviews, actually. Like, we've interviewed famous rock stars, and she's still kicking butt on interviews. Listens,
Oh,
but because it was her legacy, and I hope people do that in this country. Understand, like, maybe you can't go to Europe or, want to stay here because we still have that thing lingering around called COVID. But our backyards have an international experience too, and we can do
absolutely.
that.
And I find that when I go back to a place, whether I go back, once, twice, three, I can always find something else in a place,
Oh
Absolutely.
my God, yeah.
and there's always
Hmm.
something else, and it's
Yeah.
so cool to say, oh my gosh, I never knew that was here, and I've been there
Hmm.
many times, and so to me that's kind of the magic of travel is finding out, all the places that you haven't been, or you've been, but there's
It's
more
you
to
can't
them,
stop.
Yeah.
We're never done, and it's
No,
No.
frustrating
because
too because I want to do it all.
but even
Yeah.
if you go to the same place, if you do it in
Yeah.
a different season, it's a
Yep.
totally different
Oh,
experience.
for sure. For
So
sure.
now it's like four times whatever you think you've seen, multiplied
Yep.
times four. Okay.
Yep.
Because, yeah, you got to do the other seasons if you really
Hmm.
want to see it
Yep.
all.
Oh, well,
Yep.
we just did
Yep.
Madison, Wisconsin, right? We've
Hmm.
now
Yes.
done it. Now they're saying we've been there I can't keep count, but
Yeah.
we have
Mhm.
done all 4 seasons in Madison, Wisconsin. And I have to tell you, there's nothing like walking dogs in
I
fall
love it.
leaves that
Mhm.
they just think
Oh,
every leaf is another thing to sniff
yeah.
and
Yeah.
roll in. And I'm like, I've never experienced that. Like walking a dog,
Yeah.
like, but that was a different experience. Like just being part of the neighborhood, walking a dog in the leaves, and the dogs are like, dude, look at the leaves, man. This is so cool. They
To
did it in the
walk a
snow too.
cat.
And I was like, but they really remind you like to appreciate each season and the beauty that there's a bounty in every season. And when you're in these kinds of places,
Absolutely.
I'm like, this is so cool. Look at them in the leaves. Every single leaf was something like a new toy.
Yeah.
That was
Hmm.
Yeah.
cool. That was, so I know that's not a normal touristy thing, but it was for me. That was like, wow, you can't get any closer to living here than walking the dog and really experiencing the leaves in a neighborhood and just being one in an area that, we've been there in the spring and seen the sandhill cranes. We've been there in the snow and shoveled snow. And then in the summer when the lakes are just brimming and beautiful and the farm bounty is like amazing.
Yeah.
And
No,
you did you go to college there, didn't you?
I went to school for a short period of time in Madison at University of Wisconsin, and I
Cool.
lived in the Chicago area, and I used to go up to Lake Geneva and, go to Milwaukee
Hmm.
and go up in Wisconsin many, many times. And so I think I even said that story with the pictures about autumn in the Midwest, and how incredibly beautiful it is. And, I know New Englanders think that they've got a that New England in the
look at
fall.
her
And
Chicago spirits
yes,
coming out. Look at
yes.
her. Look at her. Go
Well,
fire monkey. The fire's coming out.
and New England is terrific, is incredible in the fall, but the Midwest, really has its own
idyllic.
beauty as well. Yeah,
it's idyllic. We went to a park in St. Louis, Missouri, at Webster Grove. We were in Webster Grove, and it was a tiny community park, and we were staying in this bed and breakfast, STL Tuxedo Park bed and breakfast in St. Louis. That's what the STL was. And it was inside a renovated church. I mean, it had the stained glass windows.
Was way cool.
Historic, and it was a trip. It was very cool. I recommend people go there. And anyway, we went to this park. We're like, well, we're going to do what the community parks were. And of course, it's still COVID time. But some of these B&Bs, you can just do like a walking tour of the architecture of the neighborhood, of just homes.
Yeah.
And it's mind-blowing. It was fall. It was actually this time of year that we're recording, November. And we went to this park, and I think it was one of the few times Nancy and I really experienced what you've seen on TV and what you've seen in magazines of fall. And we're sitting on a bench, and just yellow leaves were falling down on all of us. And yet the trees still had their leaves. And people were playing soccer in the field over there. People were walking their dogs. People were just hanging out in the gazebo. Awesome. I mean, it was just one of those idyllic things. And I think that is what the Midwest represents, is this idyllic quality of life. It's, I don't know how others to put it. It is that. The Midwest has that. It's cool.
Yeah. I'm a Midwesterner, born and bred, and
now you're a Southwesterner.
Back there. Yeah, I'm now a Southwesterner, but it's like I've still got those the very strong Midwestern roots, and autumn is a time when I feel particularly very homesick for the Midwest.
But now Santa Fe in winter, you've got all the snow on the adobe.
Magic.
Luminarias.
Oh,
we found the Farolitos.
Yeah.
I did not know that was about thieves with money. I didn't know that Farolitos came from that.
It's such a beautiful. It's such a beautiful experience here with winter here. It really is, And it's also, you picture blue skies, and you picture the snow, and you picture, I don't know. It's charming. It's really charming.
No, you've got the big open skies. That's something.
Yes.
Once you live in the Southwest, you won't. Yeah. It's hard to live anywhere else because you're used to the sun at 4 a.m. and waking you up at that time, and the sunrise, sunset.
Far.
The sky is so massive. The sky is big.
It is incredible. Yeah, it is incredible.
Fire Monkey, happy end of 2022, and here's to 2023 being an amazing new set of adventures for you, which we know you're going to have. Enjoy Portugal. We know that's going to be amazing. And don't forget to bring us back some port.
You as well. Amazing adventures.
Well, hopefully our paths will cross, because we will be going through the Southwest, and we're going to the Pacific Northwest, going to Eugene, Oregon, too. So,
You can't stay away either.
No, apparently not. If there's certain places we keep circling: Asheville, North Carolina, Natchitoches, Louisiana, Tucson, of course, and New Mexico, Silver City,
there's so much to see.
All of it.
There's so much to see.
I think we'll be circling for the rest of our lives, and maybe we need to buy a new car soon.
No.
Oh, I know. I can't.
You can't say that.
Our car will be put in a museum.
She's gonna last. She's gonna last.
All right, everybody, again, bigblenradio.com, and Debbie's articles are up on nationalparktraveling.com. Stay tuned and sign up for our newsletter so you can get our digital magazines in your email box, and one of them being Parks and Travel magazine with the stories that we've talked about. Thanks so much, Debbie.
Thank you, ladies, and happy and healthy 2023.
Same to you. Happy holidays.
All right. Bye-bye now.
Bye-bye.